Good evening and welcome to Face to Face, our current affairs program where we discuss the most important events from a Central Eastern European perspective. I'm joined by Michał Broniatowski, editor-in-chief of TVP World. Good evening, Michał.
Good evening.
Georgia has seen a fourth straight night of street protests and a string of public resignations also, triggered, of course, by the ruling party's decision to suspend plans to start talk on the accession to the European Union. Also, as we know, a TVP World producer has been among those hit by water cannons during these street manifestations and protests.
Well, this is the case which is unluckily typical for the coverage of street fights anywhere in the world. Our producer was in the street just in front of the water cannon, and he was hit directly in his eye and spent the whole night at the emergency unit in the hospital. Now he's already resting in the hotel, but this shows how violent all these events are turning into, and it shows the difference between the Maidan revolution in Ukraine 11 years ago compared to what is now happening in Tbilisi. They are fighting for the same thing, which is, again, fight for the European Union.
And the independence from Russian influence.
Yes, but this is equal. The one is impossible without another. This is the second case in history of Europe when people are risking their lives in the streets to get into the Union, which is very significant. This time round is different than 11 years ago because the authorities decided not to let the thing develop into something comparable to what happened in Kyiv a decade ago, and they are already attacking heavily and strongly people who are gathering in the streets, and especially in front of the parliament in Tbilisi.
Well, preventing another Maidan, this time in Tbilisi, seems not to be successful because people are gathering, as we said, fourth night straight. However, let's discuss this infuriating decision by the Georgian government. What was behind it? What was the rationale?
This is a Russian scenario. The case is previous coalition is currently again in power, and this government is strongly pro-Russian and only pretending to be pro-European Union to the point that last week they announced that they would be postponing the date of entering or starting final negotiations until 2028. The reason for that is dates. It is not the case because it's usually several years, as we will see will be in the case of Ukraine. The thing is that whenever you deal with the European Union, they are looking at your hands. They are watching you. This was the case in Ukraine. This was also the case in Poland over the last 8 years. The main reason for this attacks on the European Union was that the European Union was capable of controlling any anti-democratic moves of the then power in Poland. And it's very similar here. In Georgia, the longer we keep them away, the safer we are in imposing undemocratic decisions.
All right, but so far, all the foreign powers, including Russia, are standing back and aside. How disturbing for the Kremlin might be another color revolution in Georgia?
After the victory of the Maidan revolution, Russians introduced a new strategic agenda concerning defense of the country, and this time it was straight after the after Maidan in 2014. This included a statement that all these colorful revolutions, like Orange Revolution previously in Ukraine, or Roses Revolution, as they call the protests earlier in the first decade of the century in Georgia was called. So these color revolutions are now considered as the direct threat to the Kremlin, and it is stated in their security strategy, defense strategy. So it's obvious that this time they are, they don't want to be taken by surprise by the events. And if we are talking about decisions to attack, peaceful demonstrations, I'm sure we can without very much of exaggeration say that it is that the reaction of this government is strongly supported by the Kremlin.
And how likely is the scenario of Russians stepping into Georgia? Russia, since long time, has ruled that they are not opening two fronts. This was they were in Afghanistan when in Poland we started the Solidarity Revolution, and even though many people were afraid of them entering Poland, they didn't, because they were tied up in Afghanistan. So, judging from history, we shouldn't expect this, but you never know. Russian troops are, I think, 200 kilometers from Tbilisi in southern Ossetia. So this is, of course, possible. So they are watching.
Of course.
But in the meantime, the opposition leaders in Georgia cry out for help. Let me just quote Georgi Vashadze: "We are not only fighting against pro-Russia Ivanishvili, we are fighting against the hybrid war unleashed by Russia. Help us." Also, through other intermediaries, like in many interviews, we hear those opposition leaders. How about helping Georgia? Why only the Baltic states imposed sanctions on the Georgian government?
They said they would.
They would, exactly. But is it possible? Would it change anything? And why the European Union doesn't seem to
Well, it does.
follow?
It does, definitely it does, because under former head of foreign affairs in the European Commission, Mr. Borrell, his statements about Russian aggression in Ukraine or intervention in Georgia were very, very, very weak. We are observing the situation, we are deeply concerned, and things like that, all this funny diplomatic language. His successor, Kaja Kallas, who comes from...
New sheriff in town.
She's definitely new sheriff in town, because her first move after she took over, she went to Kyiv to say there something completely different from what was Mr. Borrell saying. He was saying that we will defend Ukraine as long as it takes, while Mrs. Kallas says the European Union wants Ukraine to win this war. This is completely different statement. This is the other one was we will help them defend, and now we will help them to win. Immediately she said that the European Union will start some actions, and then she said, quote, this behavior will lead to direct consequences from the European Union side. These consequences cannot be very painful. However, sanctions will be introduced against the people in power. So,
Bidzina Ivanishvili, for
example, so they may have their accounts blocked in the West. I'm sure they have somewhere in the West, and they wouldn't be able to travel. So they will be, like pariahs the same way as Kremlin keep.
Speaking of Kyiv, it's an important destination, as we know, and Kyiv has seen a surprise December visit by Olaf Scholz, who's apparently hurrying up to arrive ahead of Friedrich Merz, his successor, potential successor so far. And Olaf is offering military aid worth some 650 million euros to be materialized in December. Of course, it's military aid. However, again, Scholz stated that the Tauruses are absolutely not to be sent to Ukraine.
Well, they are in Ukraine. They are not allowed to be aimed at
Russia,
at Russian territory. This is a false assumption because there are other similar missiles which were used already by and legally because they were allowed by Americans and the British. These long-range missiles, and they hit targets inside Russian territory, and nothing happened. We only saw increased rhetorics on the part of Putin and his top security official, former President Medvedev. They used this intercontinental ballistic weapon, which is capable of carrying nuclear warheads. So they sort of changed the landscape of the war because using such missiles was not conceivable in the past. They used it, but still nothing is happening. And Russia has been crossing all possible red lines from the very beginning of this war, while Europe and NATO and West was always concerned about it, afraid of this Putin's blackmail, nuclear blackmail. And finally, I think this latest move by Biden, who allowed use of targeting Russian positions on the Russian territory, was the very, very serious case of crossing a red line. And we still have only blackmail. Hopefully nothing changes, but there are no indications that it may change.
However, this behavior by Scholz seems like a crack on European solidarity vis-à-vis Ukraine. Scholz constantly says that Germany remains the bigger spender and the biggest helper, but this is not true. And still, with those Tauruses hold up, let's say, it's really bizarre. On one hand, we have this hold-up on the Tauruses. On the other, those visits to Kyiv, like this one.
I don't think it's bizarre. It's he's campaigning. He will face elections next February, only of his own making, because he allowed his coalition to collapse. He will face the vote of non-confidence very soon in Bundestag. After which we will have elections in Germany, because he will lose them, most probably. On February 23rd, there will be elections in Germany, which would most probably bring the change of government.
So this one is just a PR move?
Not PR. PR is electioneering, because the German society is very pacifist, and he's now appealing to this, especially on the left of the country, to these feelings of non-involvement, on not using force in international affairs, which is this old history of Germany.
Electioneering behavior, I like that word. It is really very pertinent in this situation. However, if we speak about peaceful society in Germany, I wonder how do they take the latest move by Vladimir Putin, agreeing on the budget to 28 billion rubles higher than the previous record set this year. I'm talking about the defense budget, allocating $126 billion to national defense. Aggressive defense, I would call it this way. So Putin is nowhere near ending the war. How about Germany's society in this respect?
I don't think they are as deeply reading into news from Russia to learn about your figures. This is a quarter of Russian budget planned to be spent on arming, because it's not defense, of course, of arming the troops in Ukraine. So I don't think this is an argument. The argument is we don't want to get involved. We shouldn't, because if we do, we will risk the use of nuclear weapons. Not only that, Mr. Merz, who wants to be the next Chancellor, he's directly leading the German nation towards this path. And so this is obviously the game for voters.
How about the peace talks, the possible peace talks, Michał, regarding the situation on the front, and also taking into consideration latest quotes by Volodymyr Zelensky, his interview for the Sky News, where he sketches this prospect of basically giving up some sort of Ukrainian territories. In return, he would like to have this umbrella of NATO on the rest, 80% of Ukraine territory.
He already backtracked on this because, you know, he sounded it. It is in the public domain now, but he immediately said that he was misunderstood, and we will not give up our land for peace, he announced very quickly. But in the end, yes, it will probably happen like that, because Ukrainians don't have enough military power. Even if he doesn't say that, everybody understands it, that they are unable to get back these lands, especially in Donbas. We may discuss whether Ukraine is capable of taking back Crimea, but still probably not very big chances in the near future. So he will have to leave this situation hanging in the air and agree for a ceasefire. But he cannot come to the table already with his, offering his final red line for these debates.
And finally, Romania. Romania, which sees a victory from the coalition members and the governing party set to win the election, despite a far-right resurgence. But, well, a coalition should be difficult to build, as we see. Those parties are really from different sides. So what is your prediction? How is going to
the most
Romania
important thing is that the two or three key far-right parties which managed to get into the Romanian parliament, they in total have only 1/3 of seats in this parliament. So at least they will not be able to create the government. It will, of course, very much depend on the results of the runoff of the Romanian elections, presidential election, which will take place this Sunday, December 8, in which we will see Mr. Georgescu, who won the first round unexpectedly, the far-right, independent far-right candidate, and he will be joined most probably by Elena Lasconi, who is the leader of the center liberal party. If he wins, these elections on Sunday, we'll have a different situation, because in Romania it is up to the president to nominate the prime minister.
Thank you, Michał. So this is going to be our third Sunday with Romanian elections,
Yes.
one after another. So
Think about Romanians, how tired they must be.
they must be tired. That is true. Thank you very much, Michał, for your insight, for your comments tonight, for being with us. And that concludes this edition of Face to Face. Please join us every Monday and Thursday at 10:40 CET. Stay tuned to TVP World. Thank you for watching.